Looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you today. I'm Dan Pierce, and today we are with Lianna Lowenstein, MSW, RSW, CPTS. Lianna is a registered clinical social worker, certified play therapist supervisor, and certified TF CBT therapist who has been working with children and their families since 1988, if you can believe it. She presents trainings across North America and abroad, and today she's here to talk to us about innovative techniques to engage resistant children in therapy. With that said, let's jump right in. Lianna, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dan, and welcome to everyone. I think we have people watching from all over the world. We have some watching from Zoom, some on Facebook Live, and so wherever you happen to be, welcome. So today's focus is really on some creative ways of working with some of those harder to engage kiddos in therapy. And my goal is for you to leave today with some really practical, creative ideas to implement immediately into your practice. Now, I've been working in the field since 1988. It's a long time. And I'm trained in play therapy and in a number of other theoretical approaches like CBT and trauma-focused CBT. And I've written a bunch of books. So a lot of my ideas really stem from my own ways of trying to engage some of my clients. Before we get started, I want to just say that this information that I am presenting is copyrighted. You can certainly use any of this in your own direct clinical work with clients, but if you want to use it for any other purpose, you do need to seek permission. We will have some time at the end for questions, so please hold questions till the very end. For those of you who are on Zoom, please hold off on using the chat box until the very end. And then not everything that you see in my presentation is in your handouts, but everything important that you need is in your handouts. So what is therapeutic resistance? So it's all those behaviors in the therapeutic system which interact to prevent the therapeutic system from achieving the client's goals for therapy. The therapeutic system includes the client, the therapist, and the context in which therapy takes place. That is, it could be the agency or the institution in which it occurs. So one of the things I really want to emphasize today is that resistance isn't just merely a characteristic of the client, but it's often a more complex interaction of a number of different things. So certainly there are factors that the client may be bringing that create therapeutic resistance, like a client who is really shy and takes time to warm up to the therapist, or a client who's maybe been forced to attend therapy and they don't really want to be there, so they're presenting as really hostile, or a child who has difficulty verbally articulating their thoughts and feelings. There's family characteristics and behaviors which can contribute to resistance. Examples might be a family who really don't want their stuff being brought out into the open. And maybe they've even told the child, don't tell your therapist that, that's just for us, that's just for our family to know. There are the therapist characteristics and behaviors. So resistance sometimes has to do with countertransference issues, or maybe it stems from the therapist's lack of confidence or competence. Maybe you're working with a client who's just presenting with some really complex therapeutic needs, and perhaps you don't have the training and the experience to be really helping that client in the way that that client needs to be helped. Or maybe the client is kind of pushing your buttons in some way, and the client can sense that, and that can lead to resistance. And then there are societal influences, like, therapy is still maybe a stigma. So there can be a whole bunch of different things that are leading to resistance. But today we're really focusing predominantly on the child's characteristics and behaviors and how to reach those clients who might be tougher to engage. So the first tip that I want to share with you today is to first assess the factors underlying the client's resistance. So when a child is resistant, usually that resistance is communicating a message. For example, I don't trust you, especially if it's a child who's experienced a lot of trauma and maybe, they've been to therapy before, or there's been a lot of adult helpers coming in and out of their life, and they just are, not that trusting. Or maybe you haven't spent the time to really develop that therapeutic rapport. Maybe it's, you can't help me, or I need to feel in control, or you'll think I'm crazy if I talk to you about what happened to me, or you don't understand me or my culture, which I live in Toronto, and Toronto is actually the most culturally diverse city on the planet. We were written up in National Geographic a number of years ago because of our cultural diversity. And so my client population comes from many different cultural, religious backgrounds. And sometimes, maybe the client doesn't feel like I kind of get them because I'm not from their culture. Or maybe the child's resistance is communicating, I have a secret I'm nervous to share, or I'm not ready to talk about this difficult stuff, or I don't have permission to talk to you openly, or my parents don't like you, so why should I? Or I'm not the crazy one, my parents are, and sometimes that's true. I don't have privacy to talk openly, especially for those of us who are doing online sessions and the child's talking to you from their home and maybe they don't have a private, quiet space to talk to you. Or maybe it's, this is boring. So there are certainly some questions that we can ask ourselves to assess what is contributing to the client's resistance. And there's questions that we can ask the client, but this webinar is really all about creative ways. So I have a technique that I've developed, and I have many different versions of the sticky dots activity. And for those of you who are familiar with my work, you might be familiar with some of my other versions of sticky dots. This version is to assess clients' resistance. And I actually developed this activity a few years ago. I was working with a boy who had been sexually abused by an older boy in his neighborhood. And he was actually really easy to engage initially in therapy. But when we got to the trauma narrative, I was doing trauma-focused CBT with him. And when we got to the trauma narrative, when, talking about his sexual abuse, he shut down. And so I actually developed this activity for him, and then I've since adapted it a little bit. So the instructions are, lots of kids have a hard time talking about their problems and worries. Read each statement below and put a sticky dot beside the statements that are true for you. You can put more sticky dots to show how you feel. So if you don't feel this way at all, don't put any dots. If you feel this way a little, put 1 or 2 dots. And if you feel this way a lot, put 3 or 4 dots. So these are the statements, and you can certainly take an activity like this and adapt it. So I don't know you well enough to talk about it. I feel scared to talk about it. I'm worried you'll think I'm weird if I talk about it. I'm worried I'll get in trouble or get someone else in trouble. Someone will be upset if I talk to you. Someone told me not to talk. Talking is hard. I prefer to show what happened using art or toys. I'm worried someone at home will overhear what I say. I don't feel comfortable talking to you by phone or online, which is obviously, I would only have that statement in if it was online therapy. I'm not the one who needs help, my parents are. Now, depending on where the client puts the sticky dots, that will guide us in terms of how we need to respond. So there's a few different ways that we might want to respond. First, I think making a normalizing or an empathic kind of statement can be really helpful. Like, lots of kids feel embarrassed talking about sexual abuse or talking about divorce or whatever it is that the client's sort of main presenting issue is. Or I know it's really hard to talk about this hard stuff. Reassuring, kids usually feel better after they talk about it. And then empowering. I think when we can empower clients and give them control, that can often be a really helpful strategy to get at their resistance. So I might say, I prepared 2 activities to help you talk about your feelings, a game and an art activity. Which do you prefer? So giving them a choice. And then variation for online sessions, instead of sticky dots, you could do finger rating. So, 4 fingers if you feel this way a lot, 0 fingers if you don't feel this way at all, and they can just hold up fingers as you read the statements out loud. The second tip I want to share is to build and maintain a genuine, respectful, therapeutic rapport. Now, we all know the importance of rapport building. But when we're working with resistant kiddos, it's even more important. So we really need to take the time to really focus on building that rapport. And of course, there are things that we can do. The use of self is really the most important way that we can build rapport. So really, demonstrating genuine, unpreoccupied interest in the child, and really, providing the client with our undivided attention. Now, when I'm doing online sessions, my home office has a big window, and the big window faces a really busy street. And it would be very easy for me to get distracted by looking out the window and seeing people riding their bikes and walking their dogs. So when I'm doing an online session, I close the blinds, I turn off all ringers, and I really focus on the child. So we really want to give them our undivided attention and really convey that we're interested. Conveying warmth and empathic understanding. So, our tone of voice, smiling when it's appropriate to do so, leaning forward a little bit closer to the client to convey empathy, being patient, really understanding that some clients just take time to warm up to us. And then I think it can also be really helpful to define clearly and directly why the child is coming to see you, who you are, what your role is, and what you'll be doing together. So I like to begin the first session with a welcome letter, and I have lots of different versions of the welcome letter, and I adapt it depending on the client's main presenting issue. So I'm going to read one version of my welcome letter, and this is the bereavement version. This comes from my book, Creative Interventions for Bereaved Children. And I'll just read this to you, and you can take an activity like this, a letter like this, and again, just adapt it, make it your own. So it says, welcome, and there's a space for the child's name. So let's say the client's name is Johnny, so welcome, Johnny. You are here today because someone you cared about died. Now, why am I starting the letter off that way? Because I want to model for the client that we can talk openly and directly about why they're coming to see me. And if I can say it, it takes the pressure off the child having to say it. So I want to start the letter off just in a very direct way. So you're here today because someone you cared about died. Kids who are dealing with the death of a special person usually have lots of feelings, thoughts, and reactions. This is called grief. It may take a while for you to sort out these feelings and start to feel better again. This is the place where you can come and talk about your feelings. You may feel worried, nervous, or scared about coming here today, but hopefully you'll feel better as we get to know each other. So I'm starting the letter off by really normalizing and validating their potential feelings. My job is to listen to you and to help you with your problems and worries. Each time you come here, we'll do some talking and some playing. Many children don't want to talk about upsetting things like when someone dies, but getting your feelings out can help you feel better. Since it can be hard to talk about death and painful feelings, we'll use drawing activities and games to make it easier for you to share your feelings. All your hard work will be kept in this scrapbook and will be locked in a safe, private place here in my office. On your last day of coming here, you can either take your scrapbook home or you can leave it in the office or will be kept in a safe, private place. So all my clients get like a cardboard duotang, that's what we call them here in Toronto, like a cardboard folder, and all their stuff goes in their folder. If you'd like, you can take some time now to decorate the cover of your scrapbook. I look forward to talking and playing with you from, and then I sign my name, and the letter goes on the first page of their scrapbook. So it really kind of explains why they're coming to see me, what my role is, and what we'll be doing together. And I find that that really just helps clients, puts them at ease. And then I always begin with a fun engagement activity, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples. For younger children, paper bag puppets. It begins by each of us creating our own paper bag puppet. And while we're creating our puppets, we're chit-chatting. And so that just in and of itself lowers the threat level, puts the client at ease as we're chit-chatting and doing this craft activity. And then I use my paper bag puppet to talk to the client's paper bag puppet. So I say, I want you to use your puppet to talk for you. And then I basically interview the client's puppet. So I use my puppet to talk to the client's puppet. And I begin with very easy peasy, neutral, getting to know you questions like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite toy? What's your favorite TV show, etc. And as I see the client engaging and starting to feel more at ease, then I transition into questions that require greater emotional risk taking. But if I see the client still seeming nervous, then I just keep it very neutral and only stick to the easier neutral questions. So you really have to be very attuned to the client, be watching for signs of lowered anxiety, and only shift to the feeling type questions when they're ready. So what makes you feel happy? What makes you feel sad? Tell about a time someone did something mean to you. What's something you wish for? So again, you can adapt these questions, make them your own, but always, think about the pacing of the questions, starting with really neutral questions. For older clients, I would say like 11, 12 and up teens, Google It is an activity I use a lot. And this is an activity developed by Brenda Sousa, who is one of my former interns. And so the instructions are, I'm going to ask you some questions, and the way to answer is by using the search box at Google. You can type in as many words as needed to find what you're looking for. You can even click on the Google image icon to get pictures. So if I'm doing this online, then the client shares their screen. And if I'm in person, then we can either use my phone, or if the client has their own phone, and then they can use that to do their Google search. So examples of questions, again, starting with neutral and then gradually working up to questions that are more emotional in nature, only if they're ready. So, for example, Google one of your favorite TV programs, one of your favorite movies, one of your favorite snack foods. And then as the client is engaging, you can ask Google something you fear. Google something that makes you feel sad. Google something you'd like to, something you really like about your family. So you can, again, really be creative here. And one of the reasons why I think this can be such a helpful activity with teens is that it gives them a lot of power and control. First, they get to choose what they're going to type into the Google search box. Then of all the different things that pop up on the screen, they get to then choose which one they're going to click on. And then they get to choose what about that image they're going to share with you. And also, the screen creates that safe emotional distance. They don't even have to make eye contact with you if they don't feel comfortable. They can just kind of focus on the screen, and that creates that safe emotional distance. So those are two examples of rapport building activities. I've included in your handout some other favorite rapport building activities, but there's lots of really good creative stuff out there. The next tip I want to share is to play an engaging therapeutic game. Who doesn't love games? I love games. We've been having some really fun, games nights with friends over Zoom these last few months. But clients, all clients love games. And of course, you want to gear the game to the client's presenting issues, to their age, to what you think that will engage them. So again, I'm going to show you a couple of examples, or well, one example at least. This is the dice game, and the reason there were lots of different game ideas I could have shared with you today. I chose the dice game because it's a game that you can easily adapt for really any presenting issue by simply changing the questions. So I have a lot of different versions of the dice game published in a couple of my books, but I'm going to share two different versions with you today to show you how you can just adapt them. The first is just what I call the general version, and this is a good one to do in a first session with a client because it's a good assessment activity. So the instructions are: the dice game will help you share your thoughts and feelings. To play, roll the dice. If you roll an even number, answer question below in order from 1 to 6. You earn 2 Lego or 2 beads when you answer the question. If you roll an odd number, you get 1 Lego or 1 bead. So I have in my office a shoebox filled with Lego and another shoebox filled with beads. And whenever we're playing a game where they can earn, points or something, then they can choose from Lego or beads. And then all my clients get a Ziploc bag. And at the end of their final session, they get to create something out of all the beads or the Lego that they've accumulated over their time in therapy with me. So as therapy is progressing, they get to see, their bag filling up with Lego and beads, which I think is another great way to engage the client and get them excited about coming back. So, and then it says, play the game until all the questions below have been answered. At the end of the game, get 5 bonus Lego or beads. Again, just to sort of get them excited about playing the game. So sample questions. Say 2 things that make me feel happy, 2 things that make me feel sad, angry, or upset. My 2 biggest worries. 2 things you'd like to change about your family, 2 things you hope I can help you with, which gives me a sense of what their goals are, and 2 wishes you have. So again, you can take this activity, adapt it, gear it to the client. Here's another version, and this is geared to bereaved children. This is who told me my special person died and what I remember them saying. This is what I did and felt right after I found out my special person died. This is how others in my family reacted to my special person's death. This is what I know about when, where, and how my special person died. These are my questions and worries I have about my special person's death. And these are the people I can talk to when I feel upset. So it's a rapport building activity, but it's also an assessment activity. And it takes the scary out of talking about difficult stuff and really engages the client to openly articulate their thoughts and feelings. And clients are usually, excited about earning beads and Lego. Now, if you're doing online sessions, there are online dice that you can use, which is another kind of fun factor of the activity. Another therapeutic game is crumpled paper throw, and this is more of a psychoeducational game. And again, it's one that you can easily adapt depending on the client's presenting issues. Now, I have actually included in your handouts this game, so you have this in your handouts. And I've included in your handouts lots of different versions of the game. So the instructions are: crumple a piece of paper into a ball and toss the paper ball towards the trash can. So you want to put the trash can at least, I would say, 6 feet away from where the client is standing. So you have the client stand maybe behind a tape line, or you could put a piece of paper onto the floor, and this is their standing spot. And then you put the trash can about 6 feet away from where the client is standing, from their standing spot. If you get the crumpled paper into the trash can, you earn 2 beads, 2 Lego or beads. If you miss, answer a question, and you get 1 Lego or bead when you answer the question. If your answer is incorrect, your therapist will read the answer to the question, and then you'll have a chance to answer again to earn the Lego or the bead, and play until all the questions have been answered. And so because it's a psychoeducational game, I usually say to the child, you won't know the answers right away to some of the questions I'm going to ask you, and that's kind of the point. So if you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm going to then read the answer to the question. You're going to listen real carefully, and then you'll have a chance to answer the question once you've heard me read the response. Again, I'm not going to read through the different questions because you have it in your handouts, but you have a version for sexual abuse, you have a version for domestic violence, for substance misuse. So you definitely want to read through the questions and prepare this game ahead of time, pulling out any questions that are not appropriate for the client and adding in additional ones that you want to add. Now, we know that some of our clients are presenting with multiple presenting issues. Like maybe the client's coming to see you because they've been sexually abused and also experienced physical abuse, and maybe they have a parent who's struggling with substance misuse. So you wouldn't want to do every single question that's in the version that I've given you. You'd want to kind of pull out some key questions from each of those categories, because you don't want the game to go on and on. You really want to kind of move it along. So I would maybe select 10 or 12 of the most important questions for the game. Now, interspersed in the game, so there's questions, and then there's take a break to move your body, where we both get up and we move, and we do some physical actions, which just adds an element of engagement and getting the client up and moving. And here's some additional favorites in terms of therapeutic games. The next tip I want to share is if the client is unable or reluctant to verbalize their thoughts and feelings, use interventions that don't rely on verbal skills. So there are some kids who can easily verbalize their thoughts and feelings, but I think many of our clients really struggle to do that. So you want to find alternate ways for them to express themselves that don't pressure them to verbalize. So again, I'm going to share a couple of my favorites. This first one is called People in My World. And the goal of this activity is to assess the client's feelings, their perception of family and community relationships and available supports, and to open communication about these issues. Now, I originally published this activity back in 1999 in my book, Creative Interventions for Troubled Children and Youth. And since publishing it so many years ago, I've adapted it a lot. So this version that I'm going to share with you is an adapted version of the original. So the instructions are, this activity will help you talk about the important people in your world. The first step is to fill in the picture of the world by writing the names of the important people. So I'm pretty directive here because I want the child to include themselves and the important people. So the child gets a blank picture of a world. So picture this, so they get a blank picture of a world, or they can draw their own, a big picture of a world. And I say, first, I want you to put yourself in the world. So you can put yourself at the top or in the middle or at the bottom. And then I say, next, I want you to put the people that you live with. And that's exactly how I word it. I want you to put the people that you live with, because I'm curious to see who the client puts next and where they put those people in relation to where they put themselves in the world. So this, and then I say, next, I want you to put other relatives who you spend a lot of time with, or relatives who maybe help take care of you, because you want the client to include themselves, their family, and other primary caregivers. I also ask them to include their teacher, because I think that's a really important relationship that we want to understand. And then put other important people you feel especially close with, or who have hurt or upset you, because you don't want the client to only include the positive relationships in their life. You want the client to also include any problematic relationships. And then we use stickers for different feelings. And after this, I'll explain how to adapt this if you don't have the stickers. So this client that I'm going to share with you is a 9-year-old boy who his parents split up when he was around 3 years old due to domestic violence. Mother fled the abusive relationship, and Jason went with his mother. He was 3 at the time. Jason's father struggled with substance misuse and would come in and out of Jason's life. Mother eventually remarried and had another child with that union. So now flash forward several years later, 6 years later, Jason is now 9 years old, living with mom, stepdad, and his 4-year-old half-sister. And he hadn't seen his father in about 6 months. And dad shows up at the door wanting to take him out for dinner. And mom says, you can't just show up out of the blue. If you want to see your son, you have to arrange it in advance. And this enraged his father. He forced himself into the house and went into the kitchen, grabbed the knife, and repeatedly began to stab Jason's mother. Jason and his sister ran into the closet. They hid in the closet they were in there probably for about half an hour. They could hear their mother's screams. Finally, Jason said to his sister, you stay here. I'm going to go see what's going on. He came out of the closet, saw his mother lying unconscious in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor. He called 911. Mom was rushed to hospital, and thankfully she survived. So I'm now conducting a trauma assessment and using people in my world to assess. So you can see he put himself at the top. He put his mom and his 4-year-old half-sister Mary right below him. His stepdad is further down on the side. His father, who's now in jail, is way down at the bottom. He's also included his grandparents, 2 friends, his dog, his teacher, and me. So first I asked him to put happy faces on who feels happy. And so he put two happy faces on his sister, Mary, and said, Mary is happiest because mom loves her best. Granny and Grandpa are happy to see me and Mary, my dog and my friends because they have a happy life. Note, he did not put any happy faces on himself. Put Band-Aids on anyone who feels hurt or sad. So he put Band-Aids on his mom, on himself, and on his dad. So mom is hurt, she almost got dead. Dad's upset to be in jail. I am sad, mom almost got killed and dad's in jail. B's on who's angry, so dad is angry that he's in jail. Mom is angry when I be bad, and my teacher is angry when I be bad. Spiders on anyone you feel afraid of. I'm afraid of dad, he hurt mom and he could do it again. I'm afraid of my teacher when he yells. Dots on who did something wrong or bad. So he put dots on dad and said, dad is bad. What he did to mom was very bad. I am bad. I get suspended and I stealed. At this point, he looked up from the activity and he told me that about 2 weeks after the assault, he had gone to the corner store and stolen a chocolate bar. And he hadn't told anybody about that yet. So I thought that that was a good sign that he felt safe enough with me to open up about that. And I think he felt a lot of shame and guilt. And then put bears on anyone who helps you. So he put bears on mom. Mom helps me because she hugs me. And he put on me and he said, you help me with my feelings. So you can see here that it really provides you with a snapshot of so much rich, valuable information. And the client doesn't really have to say anything, but they can share so much, information with you through these, what I call no talk activities. But of course, you always want to take an activity like this and you want to process. You want to process by asking, some additional open-ended exploratory questions. So, I might say, I see you put, a spider on your teacher, and you said that he scares you. Tell me more about why he scares you. So you want to just process and ask some additional open-ended questions. Now, if you don't have the stickers, you can use symbols. The client can draw happy faces, sad faces. You can use, have them draw stars, hearts. So again, just be creative and think of how to take these activities, make them your own, adapt them so that you can actually use them effectively with your clients. Now, with older clients, a variation is people in my life. And instead of using stickers, you can give them different adjectives. So you can give them maybe 30 different adjectives, both positive and negative attributes, and have them choose 3 words for each person in their world. Helpful, kind, mean, scary, popular, lonely, loved, unloved. So, be creative with, how you do this activity. So even with the teen activity, if you gear it and adapt it, you can still use these creative interventions with older clients as well. Themed family portraits is an art activity by Bonnie Thomas, and it's another really useful way of helping the client to open up, and especially useful for clients who enjoy art activities. So the instructions are, I'd like you to draw a family portrait by choosing one of the theme ideas. So, for example, I'd like you to draw a picture of your family as fairy tale or superhero characters, or draw your family as buildings in a town, or as different kinds of weather, or as articles of clothing, or as different types of food or candy. So really interesting to see the client take this creative art intervention and provide a snapshot of their family from their perspective based on these theme ideas. And then again, you always want to process. So the processing of these activities is what makes it a therapeutic intervention. Because remember, these activities are not the therapy. They are merely the tools to facilitate the therapeutic process. It's what you do with these activities that makes it therapeutic. So it's how you might, make a normalizing or validating statement based on what the client has said, the open-ended questions, the process questions that you ask. So possible process questions for this activity might include, what does this family portrait reveal about your family? if each person represented in your family portrait could talk, what would they say? How does each person represented in your family portrait feel? I might also ask, who was the easiest to choose an item for? Who was the hardest? So lots of different ways to process. And then this is a favorite of mine by Lori Gill called Messages in Art, because for those clients who really have a tough time talking, again, they can express so much through art, through this activity. So sometimes it can be difficult to verbally express thoughts and feelings. Expressions through art can be a helpful way to release and communicate feelings. Choose a family member with whom you'd like to communicate or share a message. Use the art supplies to create your message, and then explain. So this was an activity done by, so I was working with a 12-year-old girl and her mom. So this 12-year-old girl's older brother, 17-year-old brother, died by suicide. And in my individual sessions with her, so I was obviously working with her doing some grief work, and in our individual sessions, she was actually quite open and expressive with me. And her mom, when I would meet with her mom, was also quite open and expressive with me. But when I would bring the two of them together, mom and daughter, they would both shut down. And so I thought I would try this activity, and it really was a catalyst in helping them to both open up. So Sylvia, that's the 12-year-old girl, hers is the one on the left with the Band-Aids. And her message to her mother is, I'm very sad, I hurt everywhere. Sometimes I feel like I'm trapped inside a big hole. I think Kenny, that's her brother, is watching over me. Now, these are not real names. I've changed the names to protect confidentiality, but so clearly that's her message to her mom. So I feel like I'm trapped in a big hole. I think Kenny is watching over me. And then her mom's message to her daughter is, our love has grown apart. It's like there's a fence between us. You hardly talk to me anymore. I think you blame me. I should have done something to help Kenny. And then she got very teary and she said, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. And then I asked them some process questions. I asked, what was it like to communicate your message through art? To which mom replied, it was good to tell each other how we finally feel. I asked, how did it feel to receive the message? Mom said, I feel bad that she hurt so much. And then she actually got up and went and hugged her daughter, which I thought was a really lovely gesture. And then Sylvia said, Mom, I don't blame you. It wasn't your fault. And then I asked, what did you learn through this activity about ways to communicate with each other? And Sylvia said, I guess it's good to let Mom know how I feel. And Mom said, you can tell me anything. I'm here for you. And then after this session, they were really able to open up much more, both in session as well as at home. So I think this activity really helped them to begin talking with each other about their shared grief. The next tip is to deal with clients' issues vicariously through a character in a story or movie or TV show. So sometimes clients are really resistant to talking about their own stuff, but they'll talk about a character, in a storybook or in a TV show. That creates that distance for them to focus on somebody else. So I want to share Allie's story, and I also have a lot of different versions of Allie's story. I have a version for divorce, one for bereaved children, one for sexually abused children. So I'm going to share with you the divorce version, and you can actually download a copy of this from my website. You go to my website, which is liannalowenstein.com, and don't do this now. You can do this after the webinar. So liannalowenstein.com, you click on articles for professionals, and then you need a password, which is Allie period divorce. So Allie, all lowercase, Allie, A-L-I, then a period, and then divorce. And that will give you a free version of this story. So let me read it to you. So it's called Allie and Her Mixed Up Feeling Jar. This is a story about a girl named Allie. Her parents got divorced. So this is the divorce version that I'm reading to you. So her parents got divorced. She has a lot of mixed up feelings inside her. She remembers the day her parents told her the awful news. Her mom and dad sat her down in the living room, and her mom said, Allie, you may have noticed that Daddy and I have been arguing a lot lately. We have some big grown-up problems, and we've tried really hard to fix them, but we can't. So we've made a very big and difficult decision. We're getting divorced. At first, Ali couldn't believe it. She was shocked. She thought her parents would make up and everything would be fine, but that didn't happen. Once Ali realized her parents were not getting back together, she felt so sad. But she pretended she was fine because she didn't want to make her parents more upset. After her dad moved out, Ali worried that her mom would go away too. She was scared that there would be nobody left to take care of her. And since their money problems got worse after the divorce, Ali worried that they wouldn't be able to afford to send her back to summer camp. Ali felt the divorce was her fault. She thought if she had been better behaved, her parents would still be together. This made Ali feel guilty. Ali wondered if she should tell her friends about the divorce. She felt nervous about what to say, and she worried that the kids at school would think her family was weird. But everyone at school found out anyway when her parents came to her school play and had a big argument in front of everyone, and her dad yelled at her mom, "It's a good thing we're divorced." Ali felt so embarrassed. Ali got depressed because her feelings were so mixed up. Sad, guilty, worried, scared, embarrassed. All these mixed up feelings jumbled up inside her. She didn't know what to do with all these mixed up feelings. So, you know what she did? She pretended she had a big jar inside of her stomach where she could keep all these mixed up feelings. It wasn't a real jar, of course, but she pretended to keep all these mixed up feelings inside her jar. Because of all the mixed up feelings inside her, Ali sometimes did things she never used to, like getting angry at people for no good reason. She threw toys around her room and yelled and screamed, even at her cat Whiskers. Often she had scary dreams that would wake her up in the middle of the night. When this happened, she would squeeze her teddy bear really hard and bury her head in her pillow until she fell back to sleep. Even though her parents were divorced, the arguing didn't stop. Her parents argued when her dad came to pick her up for visits, and they argued on the phone. This frightened Ali. They told Ali she had to pick sides and decide which parents she wanted to live with. This made her feel caught in the middle. She loved them both and didn't want to have to choose one parent over the other. She felt so confused. One night, while Ali's mother was putting her to bed, her mother said, "Ali, I love you very much. Your dad also loves you very much. We realize that it's not fair to make you choose sides, so we're going to make a plan so you can spend time with each of us." This made Ali feel so relieved. For the first time in a long time, she felt happy, and that night she had a good dream and she slept well. The next week, Ali went to see a therapist whose job it is to help kids whose parents are divorced. At first, Ali felt nervous talking to the therapist, but after a while it got easier sharing her feelings. Ali even told the therapist about her pretend jar inside her stomach. As Ali began to talk more and more about her feelings, guess what happened? She began to feel better. And then I asked some questions, first focusing on Ali, and then giving the client an opportunity to talk about their own feelings. So I asked, how did Ali feel at first when she was told her parents were getting divorced? What were some of Ali's worries? What did Ali feel guilty about the divorce? How did Ali feel when she talked to her therapist about her feelings? And then I give the client a paper jar, and they can color in their own feeling jar, assigning different colors to different feelings. And the more they feel the different feelings, the more they color in the jar. So it's a way to really normalize and validate common feelings and reactions that children have to parents' divorce, to help them deal with their feelings vicariously, first through Ali, and then that helps them to open up about their own feelings. Now, on my Pinterest page, for those of you who are into Pinterest, I love Pinterest, there's a whole bunch of different books on different topics. I have lots of different boards on my Pinterest page. But when I'm reading a book to a client, because I think, reading stories to clients can be a great way to help them open up about their own stuff. But I like it to be an interactive process. So I use what I call the Post-it note question technique. So I'll go through the story and I'll think of questions that relate to the story and to the feelings in the story. And I'll write the questions on Post-it notes. And then I'll stick the Post-it notes throughout the story. So as we're reading the story, when we get to a page that has a Post-it note with a question, The client can answer the question. They can earn beads or Lego for answering the questions. So it keeps the client focused on the story. They want to really listen carefully because, of course, they want to be able to answer the questions. And it also helps you assess if the client was really listening and understanding the material in the story. Now, with older clients, I love using TV shows, movies. So I'll ask the client to choose a clip from a favorite movie or TV show that they identify, and then we'll talk about the character in the TV show or the movie, and that is a great way to, again, get them talking, focused on vicariously through the character, and then talking about themselves. The next tip I want to share, the last tip, is to make desirable behavior appealing and praise desirable behavior. So I think a lot of clients are referred to therapy because they're acting out behavior. And so a very common goal that we're often working with in therapy is to help clients, to decrease their acting out behavior, to teach them appropriate ways to express, let's say, angry feelings, increase positive behavior. And so this activity I'm going to share with you is a multi-pronged approach, and really takes also a systemic approach because it involves not just the child, but their parents as well. So it's called the anger cycle and prize bag. So I first teach the client a self-calming strategy. So I'm going to use Dan to do a demonstration. So Dan, let's both stand up.
All right.
So, and for those of you watching from home or your office, please join us. I can't see you, but let's everyone stand up. And I would introduce this activity by saying to the client, so we're going to learn a special way of breathing, and I call this cookie breathing. So we're going to first put our hand on our chest and our other hand on our belly, kind of just above your belly button. So that's where our diaphragm is. And we're going to take some slow, deep breaths. And we're going to try, as we take some slow, deep breaths, we're going to try to keep our chest and shoulders still and only feel your tummy moving in and out. So like this. So let's do it together, Dan. Good, nice breathing, Dan. Now, as you do this, I want you to, when you breathe in, you're gonna keep your mouth closed, and you're gonna breathe in through your nose like this. Then you're going to open your mouth and you're going to breathe out through your mouth like this. So you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds and out through your mouth for 4 seconds. Now, most kids at this point don't really get what I'm talking about. So this is where the cookie breathing comes in. So I'll say, Dan, what's your favorite kind of cookie?
Chocolate chip.
Okay, so let's pretend that we just baked a batch of chocolate chip cookies. And let's smell those ooey gooey delicious chocolate chip cookies coming hot out of the oven. But they're really hot, so we've got to blow on them to cool them down. One more time, smell those cookies. Excellent, you learned cookie breathing. Virtual high five, Dan.
Hey, nice. Thank
you. Okay, so that's the first part. So first I teach the client a self-calming strategy, and I teach it to the child and the parent. So everyone in the family learns cookie breathing. Now for older clients, it could be pizza breathing. So smell the pizza, blow on the pizza to cool it down. And then I introduce a prize bag. So this is where you're kind of gonna reward desirable behavior. So the instructions are, everyone gets angry sometimes. Our bodies are very smart. They give us clues when we're starting to get angry. If you use your deep breathing technique, pizza breathing or cookie breathing, as soon as you notice yourself getting angry, you'll calm yourself before losing control. You get a point each time you use cookie breathing or pizza breathing, as soon as you notice yourself getting angry, and you successfully stop yourself from losing control. Once you earn 5 points, you get to pick something from the prize bag. And then the prizes, so the prize bag is an intervention in and of itself. So I have the client, the child, and their caregiver create the prize bag. And the prize bag is not things that the parent goes out and buys the child, but rather positive parent-child time, like play a board game with parent, search a new recipe and cook it together, build a fort together, and so on. So the client and the child and their parent create their prize bag. And then we do the anger cycle. So I know you can't see this, I'm going to explain it. So I say to the client, I want you to tell me a time recently that you did something that made you really angry, and you kind of lost control of your angry feelings, and you express your anger in a way that maybe hurt somebody else, and then you got in trouble for it. So let's say the child says, well, my brother smashed my Lego, so I hit my brother. So I have them stand on the first paper, which says situation that made me angry. So my brother smashed my Lego. Angry body clues, so they stand on the next paper. So when you're feeling angry, what was your body doing? Tell me about your angry body. What happened in your body? And I might give some suggestions, like, did your body get really sort of like tight and tense? Did you feel hot? Did your heart beat faster? So the child can identify their angry body clues. And then they step on the third paper, which is inappropriate expression of anger. So you hit your brother, and then, oh, mom saw you hit your brother and took away your screens for 2 days. And then did that make you feel happy or not happy that you got in trouble and no screens for 2 days? And the child, of course, will say, well, not happy. I'll say, okay, well, you know what? Let's rewind and let's think of a better way. So same situation. So situation that made me angry, brother smashed my Legos, angry body clues, tight body, tight fists. But this time, instead of hitting your brother, you know what you're going to do? You're going to do cookie breathing. So you're going to calm your body. And mom sees that you calmed yourself by using cookie breathing, and she's so proud of you, and she gives you a point. And every time you get 5 points, guess what? You get to pick something from the prize bag. So it's a way to really motivate the client to engage in more desirable behaviors. And then there's one more component of this, which is labeled praise. So I teach the parents how to use labeled praise. Labeled praise means telling your child exactly what they're doing that you like. For example, great job using cookie breathing to calm your body. I'm so proud of you for calmly and respectfully telling me why you're angry. You chose to calm your body instead of hitting your brother. Way to go. So you want to teach the parents how to use labeled praise, because when parents praise desirable behaviors, guess what happens? Kids do more of those desirable behaviors. So it's a multi-factored approach that motivates the client to engage in more desirable behaviors, which is, I think, and it's not just focused on the child, but also the parents play an important role here in also using labeled praise to encourage those desirable behaviors. So that is a very, very quick overview of some tips and techniques to engage resistant children in therapy. Before we open it up to questions, I want to just let you know that on my website, I've got lots of free stuff. There is a free ebook of child and family therapy techniques that you can access. There's articles on all kinds of topics. You can link to my social media. You can sign up for my free online newsletter that comes out a few times a year. And you can also buy my books at a discount. So you get 20% off with code PC14. And if you buy 4 books, you get extra 10%.